Hello, and welcome to Hack Your Cybersecurity Career, Your Role in the Ecosystem. If you're joining us live, our speakers in the Slido discussion area right now answering your questions. If you need any audio or video technical support, please click the technical support button below. I am now pleased to turn it over to Carolyn Wong for her presentation.
Thank you, Britta. Hi, my name is Caroline Wong, and I am the Chief Strategy Officer at Cobalt.io, a pen test as a service company. Thank you for joining me today for a discussion about hacking your cybersecurity career and your role in the ecosystem. Cybersecurity is at the same time infinitely complex and also fundamentally simple. Just like any other business process, it requires a combination of people, process, and technology to achieve optimal results. I firmly believe that the most important of these components is people. In this talk, I'll share tips and techniques that any professional or enthusiast can use to enhance his or her cybersecurity career. I'll also talk about our responsibility to each other as an ecosystem of the world's digital defenders. As Britta mentioned, I'm on chat, and I look forward to discussing these topics with you throughout the session today. Why does cybersecurity matter in the first place? It's because the internet was never intended to do what it does today. In 1969, 4 university computers at UCLA, Stanford, UCSB, and the University of Utah were connected by ARPANET, a project started by the Defense Department's Advanced Research Projects Agency. In 1985, the National Science Foundation established NSFNet, a network of scientific computers that serve scientists, researchers, and engineers who worked for the National Center for Atmospheric Research. These people studied the atmosphere and its interactions with the oceans, land, and sun. A decade later, the internet was being used to support electronic commerce. During a 1998 U.S. Senate testimonial, a group of security researchers explained that the internet was not designed for it. They described the academic and scientific objectives of getting computers to talk to each other. Quote, "It grew up, it flourished, it struck everybody by surprise, and now big business is saying, well, let's jump on board and make some money off of this." Well, this is kind of like if you've driven in Boston. The streets aren't tremendously designed in a wonderful fashion because they follow the cows around and laid the pavement down. I mean, you can get it to work, but it can be really painful. In 2003, the first version of the OWASP Top 10 was published. And in 2011, Marc Andreessen wrote, "Software is eating the world." So here we are. Cybersecurity is a problem because we use the internet for things it was never designed to accommodate. And so many things depend on software. When value shifts from the physical world to the digital world, protecting that value has to shift too. Today, there is tremendous demand for cybersecurity talent and not enough supply. The latest ISC Squared cybersecurity workforce study states that the workforce gap has increased, again, primarily due to a global surge in hiring demand. Using the workforce estimate of 2.8 million based on the 11 economies for which ISC Squared provided a workforce estimate, and the global gap estimate of 4.07 million, ISC Squared estimates that the global workforce actually needs to grow by 145%. In the 2019 study, 65% of organizations represented have a shortage of staff dedicated to cybersecurity, and a lack of skilled and experienced cybersecurity personnel is the top concern among survey respondents. The thing is that just like any other business initiative, a successful cybersecurity program needs the right balance of people, process, and technology. Tools are useful, but no tool is a silver bullet. Any type of cybersecurity technology still requires people and the right workflows to be effective. I want to talk for a moment about why, unfortunately, all of our cybersecurity problems can't simply be solved using technology. The thing is that computers are really good at doing exactly what you tell them to do. They're not so good at thinking creatively or applying business logic. Even the most sophisticated machine learning techniques are still vulnerable to concept drift, the idea that machine learning predictions are made by using pattern matching on old data. The old data never exactly matches the new data, so the predictions can never be exactly right. To me, this is sort of obvious. If somebody built a machine that could accurately predict the future, that would be awesome. To my knowledge, this doesn't exist quite yet. I want to share an analogy that has to do with using a machine to correct spelling errors. Let's talk about a spell checker. Spell checker can be extremely useful, but it's not perfect. Look over there at the drawing on the whiteboard. Their ideas are articulated nicely. They're going to take a picture and share it with the rest of the team. A computer program sees nothing wrong with the spelling of these words, but a human does. Similarly, when it comes to something like finding security vulnerabilities in software, computers can't find everything. Only humans can find business logic flaws. And these are often some of the most interesting and most severe security vulnerabilities that there are. In his 2011 OWASP presentation called How to Prevent Business Flaws, Vulnerabilities in Web Applications, Marco Marana highlights password reset flaws, username recovery flaws, and the following e-commerce business logic attacks: altering the price of an item before checkout and bypassing payment validation before shipping an item. It would be super convenient if you could just buy a piece of technology that would do everything for you. Unfortunately, scanners and firewalls can't solve everything. Their effectiveness is directly related to the skills and manual effort of people who must tune them to a specific environment, monitor them regularly, and filter the signal from the noise. I want to tell you about a research project my friend Vanessa and I wrote, my friend and colleague, Vanessa Stoddard and I. We published it recently, and it's called The State of Pen Testing 2020. Vanessa and I worked together at Cobalt.io, a pen test as a service company. And during the last 4 years, at Cobalt, we've conducted more than 2,500 pen tests through our PTAS platform. This report features insights from aggregated data derived from nearly 1,200 pen tests conducted in 2019. We also analyzed survey responses from more than 100 practitioners in security, development, operations, and product roles regarding their security programs. Respondents spanned a wide variety of industries, including information technology, healthcare, education, retail, and finance. Finally, the report includes insights from members of the Cobalt Core pen tester community in partnership with independent researchers, engineers, and other security practitioners. I think that one of the most exciting topics that this report assesses is which web application security vulnerabilities can be found reliably using machines and which require human expertise to manually identify. The scope of this exploration is black box penetration testing, humans, against dynamic scanning and out-of-band testing, machines, for web applications. We investigate the following questions. Number one, what vulnerability types can dynamic scanners reliably find? Number two, what are the vulnerability types that only humans can find? i.e. dynamic scanners cannot reliably identify them. And number three, what are the vulnerability types for which scanners will not automatically populate results, but where automated tools can enhance efficiency to conduct further exploitation? We assume that humans will use proxies like Burp Suite, Fiddler, or Zap to modify HTTP requests, modify web sessions, and crawl sites. Any tool that can, once configured, identify a class of vulnerabilities would be considered findable by machines. Note this does not include tools like fuzzers, where the tool assists in identifying problems, but does not necessarily identify what type of vulnerability it is or how to practically address it. Our intention is that this report might help security and engineering teams to make informed decisions concerning their cybersecurity programs. Here are a few key findings. Humans win at finding the following vulnerability types: business logic bypasses, race conditions, and chained exploits. Although machines broadly win at finding most vulnerability types when applied correctly, scanning results should be used as guideposts and analyzed contextually. There are vulnerabilities that neither humans nor machines can independently find. Rather, we must work together to identify these issues. Vulnerability types in this category include authorization flaws like insecure direct object reference, out-of-band XML external entity, SAML XXE injection, DOM-based cross-site scripting, insecure deserialization, remote code exploitation, session management, file upload bugs, and subdomain takeovers. That was kind of a mouthful. As the pace of software release hastens, so must the methodologies designed to secure applications. More than a third of our survey respondents release software on a weekly or a daily cadence. And here are some of the concluding takeaways from the report. First, identifying a vulnerability is not the same as assessing the risk that it presents. Scanners can succeed in quickly finding vulnerabilities when properly directed, but practitioners are required to apply necessary context. Among the many vulnerabilities, including false positives you might find, the most important process is finding the true number of vulnerabilities and remediating the most critical ones. Right now, only humans can perform such tasks. Finally, good pen testers rely heavily on automation to test applications, whether writing Python code to iterate through hundreds of subdomains or automatically fuzzing inputs. While pen testers will automate many of their processes to maximize their own efficiency, such automation is not synonymous with scanning. Scripts are often written to problem solve and make the pen testing experience faster and more rewarding. In fact, the tools that pen testers develop and rely on to conduct security assessments reflect human creativity, persistence, and out-of-the-box thinking. In addition to evaluating nearly 1,200 pen tests conducted in 2019 and assessing the relative capability of machines and humans to find different kinds of web application security vulnerabilities, we also analyzed survey responses from more than 100 practitioners in security, development, operations, and product roles regarding their application security programs. Here's what we learned. 52% indicate that their organizations pen test applications at least quarterly, while only 16% pen test annually or biannually. 54% of organizations use an agile software development methodology, and 30% characterize their methodology as DevOps, compared to just 5% doing waterfall. 25% of organizations release software on a daily basis, 12% release software weekly, 22% release software monthly, and 13% release software quarterly. Only 1% of respondents reported that their organizations release software annually. We found out that organizations pen test many different types of applications. While application pen testing continues to be most popular, API, cloud, and mobile testing follow. Cloud environments continue to present significant risk, particularly with regards to security misconfiguration. More than half, 51%, of survey respondents conduct pen testing on Amazon-based cloud environments alone. Almost 3/4, 71%, also said that they rely on cloud environments like Amazon Web Services or Microsoft Azure. Many organizations are making the transition from DevOps to DevSecOps, and embracing an everyone is part of the security team approach to security. The majority of respondents 78%, reported a strong relationship between security and engineering, and we expect that to grow in the future. The last thing I'll share with you about the report, which I encourage you to look up and read, scanners can only be as effective as the practitioners who deploy them. Open source and enterprise scanners serve as an excellent baseline to reliably identify simpler classes of vulnerabilities. When configured correctly, they can save a tremendous amount of time. All cybersecurity programs, all application security programs, no matter how scrappy or robust, should use static and dynamic testing. Scanners, however, are not a substitute for comprehensive application security measures, nor can they replace pen testing. Okay. The internet wasn't built with security in mind. The world has a massive talent shortage, and we can't rely on automation to solve everything. I'd like to switch gears and explore what's happening to the people in this scenario. I want to talk about the culture of cybersecurity teams. Throughout my 15 years as a cybersecurity professional, I've worked on many different cybersecurity teams and interacted with dozens, maybe even hundreds of different teams by this point in time. Today, in my role as Chief Strategy Officer at Cobalt, I oversee both cybersecurity and people, human resources. It's fair for me to say that I am totally obsessed with culture. There's a book that I like a lot on the topic of culture, written by a person named Daniel Coyle. Coyle says, culture is a set of living relationships working toward a shared goal. It's not something you are, it's something you do. I certainly think this applies to cybersecurity teams. What do you think? I'd love to hear what you're thinking in the chat. One type of cybersecurity team culture is the checklist-driven kind. These kinds of teams may see cybersecurity as a set of tasks to track and complete. Maybe they're driven by compliance audits or customer contracts. There might be a lot of paperwork and documentation involved, and maybe this type of culture is very policy and process-driven. In some cases, checklist-driven security teams might have a blind spot when it comes to assessing and managing risk that's beyond the scope of whatever list they're using to drive their activity. Another type of cybersecurity team culture is driven by an engineering mentality. Occasionally, these folks might get technology happy, obsessing over an interesting solution to a problem before that problem is even clearly defined. These types of teams might talk a lot about the value of automation, but experience challenges when it comes to getting things done and over the finish line. In some cases, engineering or technology-driven security teams might have a blind spot when it comes to assessing and managing risk that's beyond whatever shiny, flashing object they're focused on in any given moment. They may also have challenges with communicating to cross-functional teams and executive leadership. Yet another type of cybersecurity team culture is driven by money. Another less flattering view might be to say that team culture is driven by office politics or even greed. Sometimes this happens when an organization finds itself on a wildly successful trajectory in a very short amount of time. Naturally, cybersecurity attacks are going to occur, and the executive team is likely to invest in cybersecurity in order to address these concerns. Security team members may be hired based on their reputations or personal brand, rather than their practical experience and ability to contribute value immediately. In some cases, money-driven cybersecurity teams might find themselves bickering with cross-functional teams and reacting to executive personalities rather than objectively assessing and managing risk. I think the most effective cybersecurity teams have a culture of collaboration. In this model, the security team aims to listen, learn, and really understand what's valuable to the organization. Security teams partner with technologists and business leaders to define the path forward together with common goals and objectives in mind. Do any of those culture descriptions resonate with you? If so, which one? I'd love to hear about it in the chat. Next week, you might consider evaluating what are the factors that inspire you and drive you to succeed. Consider that, well, maybe right now, because we've just gone over these handful of different culture types, maybe you're thinking about what type of culture your cybersecurity team has. Next week, I'll encourage you to take that one step further and consider what type of culture you'd actually prefer to be on. Maybe you're perfectly satisfied with the team culture that you're currently on, or maybe you're not. Either way, I think it's an interesting thought exercise. In the next 3 months, I recommend that you make 3 new connections with technology or business leaders at your organization, not cybersecurity leaders. Ask them what they do and what their goals are for the rest of this year and for 2021. If in the course of your conversation with them, you learn about a new business initiative, technology, or business process, take the time to learn more and analyze what security implications this new thing might have for your organization. In the next 6 months, I recommend that you find 3 job postings that align with your interests. You don't have to be actively job searching in order to do this exercise. Take a step back, zoom out, and think about the big picture. What do you want to be doing in the year 2025? Make 3 new connections outside of your organization that can help you network and get to that new place. Maybe it's someone you meet at this virtual conference. Look the person up, read or watch 1 or more things the person has written or recorded, and write to them about what you think. Ask them to connect with you and see if you can start an ongoing conversation. And finally, if you are able to find 3 or so job descriptions that you think might be really fun to do a handful of years from now, look at the requirements and skill sets that are required. And if you don't have them, see if maybe you can find some opportunities for learning that you can add to your skill set and experience over the next 5 years to propel you further. It has been my absolute pleasure to speak with you and be chatting with you. Let's keep it up. I've got here on the slide a few different ways that we can stay connected even after the conference, and I look forward to speaking with you in the chat. Thank you so much for spending time with me today.